Good morning. Welcome to Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you're toking up and tuning in. Sitting here talking to my good friend Jeb Green, and you brought donuts this morning, brother. Right on.
Man, you got to. I mean, you get up and going early on a Sunday morning, man. You got to have some donuts and coffee and all that to keep alive.
There you go. I dig it.
Keep my blood sugar right.
I am hypoglycemic, so I understand that.
Yeah. Well, especially, when you get out I get out and spend a lot of time on the road. You got to have some snacks, man. And I mean, ever since back in the day, God, 35 years back now, in high school and everything, they were a staple.
Oh, yeah, I dig it.
They saved lives.
Well, back when we were running 788, that was one of those deals, man. We were on the road a lot. We were eating a lot of different munchy food like that. So we're busy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, those statewide campaigns are something now.
Yes, they are.
It's folks don't really realize if you're gonna execute a 77 county strategy, you just added an extra 2 hours onto what it would have been otherwise, just to say get all the way out to Felt America.
And I'm amazed at all the little towns I went through.
Oh, they're great.
A ton of them.
They're great. I try to stay off the tollways and such, and now that I think Kilpatrick went cashless, I'm not even going to use Kilpatrick. If I can't roll up and give you some cash, I'm not interested. I don't,
I'll tell you what, you get on that turnpike and not know that it's going cashless. Mm-hmm. And I went up there, and I pulled into the lane, and there was nobody there. Well, I luckily had some dollar. I had a 20, I think, or whatever.
Right.
But I started feeding it to the machine. The machine would not take it, so I had to scramble around the truck looking for quarters to feed that stupid thing.
Man, get the machine out of there if it ain't going to work.
There you go, and fix the roads. Let's fix the roads.
Yeah. There's always something to be done.
Hempcrete. I love hempcrete. I love hempcrete.
Man, hempcrete is it, man. Back a while back, I'd done 3 things, construction, campaigns, and cannabis, right? And so when I got started early on, I did a lot of homes and commercial buildings with concrete and steel.
Right.
And that was something, they had that polyfiber back, 20 years ago, and I mean they still use it and replace rebar, but that's just petroleum byproduct per se, as opposed to what we could do with hempcrete. I would love to see, that industry get set up here in Oklahoma.
I'm an old concrete finisher myself. So
Are you?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh man, I was doing those high walls. I'd be up, God bless America. OSHA would not have approved my job.
And I'm looking. I do have a friend that is a professor and an expert on hempcrete. And
really?
I'm trying to get him on the show because
really. Yeah, and that's one of those things where, from what I recall on the ready mix companies, I think that there's a couple of them out there that if we were to go in and say have a load of fibrous material from the hemp that had been processed correctly and it was what it needed to be, I'm pretty sure that we might get some play there. And I mean, of course, then again, there's also, outside of a ready mix company, I mean, we could batch it up otherwise.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
They have a hempcrete school in Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I always wanted to go down there for the class and just check it out, just to see what it was like. Because, like I said, I'm a concrete finisher. I'd like to find out what hempcrete. Mm-hmm. Because I do like it, and I think it could replace several things, several places.
Yeah. I think, just as a shotcrete or a stucco application.
Yeah.
Because you already got your fiber off in there. You ain't got to mess with, running up your fiberglass and all that type of stuff.
Fiberglass, I hate fiberglass.
I try to avoid it anyway. It doesn't matter if it's insulation, bathtubs, whatever, man. You get that fiberglass airborne, it's terrible.
I've worked in a bunch of attics, and fiberglass, just, in the summertime, wintertime, doesn't matter. You get up in the attic, you get that fiberglass on you. That's what my attic, I've got cellulose in it.
Yeah. So much better. I mean, my dumbass one time, I decided that I couldn't get, I was wrecking out a bathroom in a mobile home, and it had a big fiberglass tub in it. And I thought, I couldn't get that thing to break for anything. And so I was like, I'll just take a chainsaw to it. So I did that, man. I had fiberglass in my nose for 2.5 years after that. That was stupid. Sorry, as I said, my DA.
One time, come back to replacements. One time we had an old cast iron tub in our house.
Right.
And it was too narrow. So my wife wanted it replaced. Do you know the only way to get a cast iron tub out?
Hit it with
sledgehammer.
Yep, they will shatter.
Well, no, you got to work your way through it. It doesn't shatter. I had to put on ear protection, eye protection, gloves, and I was in there for 30, 45 minutes banging away. I had the door shut. But I cut her in half with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, I've done a few, bathroom and kitchen remodels and such. I mean, I've done every phase from the ground up. Yeah. And that's a lot of structural stuff, but man, that hempcrete, I really would like to see, I call hemp kind of the other green plant. Yeah. And it's really interesting to see how much of kind of the disconnect there is sometimes, even with folks in the cannabis community, to not really, and obviously other folks that, aren't involved with it at all. It's like, well, there's hemp and there's marijuana. Yeah. Well, no, there's cannabis. Yeah. And then one becomes one or the other by a legal definition, not a scientific one. Right. So, the potential, the economic potential, and just to get a lot of good stuff done with hemp, is amazing. We all know it. We saw it, hemp for victory. I agree. They brought it on back after they, had to create, something to, persecute people with. So when they made it all illegal back in the 20s, whatever it was. Right. Yeah. Now we're talking about hemp for victory. That was the propaganda film that the government put out, and then they tried to get it destroyed. All the film copies, but the good old Library of Congress had one, and who found that? Was that Jack Harrow found that? I can't remember who it was, but yeah. They found it and put it out. And found the ancient tomes. In the film, what they did during World War II, since we couldn't get hemp or whatever from Japan, is they would exclude you and your oldest son from military enlistment draft if you grew hemp. Really? Yeah. Yeah. And on that note right there, we're going to take a short break and give a shout out to our sponsors. You're watching Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you toke up and tune in.
Empire Genetics is an advanced research program set forth under the 2018 Oklahoma Industrial Hemp Pilot Program, overseen by Northwestern Oklahoma State University. A lot of farmers reach out to us. They've heard about what we're doing and are interested and want to know what they've had growing on their land since they were kids. Oklahoma is very diverse in its weather system, and so these plants have adapted over the last several hundred years to withstand that. A lot of it was brought here by the U.S. Department of the Interior back as part of Hemp for Victory. Hemp for Victory was brought about with the loom of the coming World War. We knew that we were going to have to produce a very large amount of hemp to rig the ships for their sailing, for their ropes, for their anchors, also clothing, sailors' hats, our flags, everything was made from hemp. Marijuana wasn't made illegal until 1969. The USCSA classed marijuana in with other dangerous narcotics such as heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamines. The campaign to slander cannabis began back in the 20s, mainly with William Randolph Hearst and the paper mills. Then that transgressed into big oil later in the 30s and 40s, really gained steam. By late 1937, the Congress passed the Marijuana Tax Act, which grouped industrial hemp in with marijuana. After that, they gave the differentiated names, hemp, marijuana. While farmers were still allowed to grow, taxes were raised so heavily that it made it difficult, especially for lower income farmers. In 1940, when Hemp for Victory came to Oklahoma, they actually used Oklahoma as a test plot. Several genetics were shipped in from all around the world to see what would grow best on American soil, since Oklahoma has such a diverse climate. And it's very hard to find a lot of documentation on that. We know there was a lot of places, obviously, that were involved, or we wouldn't be finding cannabis in every county in Oklahoma. Hempire Genetics, sowing the seeds of the past to grow a better future for everyone. Visit us at hempiregenetics.com or on our social media pages at Hempire Genetics.
Welcome back to Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you toked up and tuning back in. I'm sitting here talking to my good friend Jeb Green, and brother, you're taking me back to my old phone company days. You brought the donuts here. It's great.
You got to have them. How else are we going to survive?
Cool. Now we were talking about hemp, which we know I love hemp a lot.
Yep. I'm a big fan myself. You know, I've been involved a little bit in the hemp side of things here the last few years. There's some other folks in Oklahoma that have really gone, great guns with it and done some really good things, through the what was originally the pilot program on that, and now we've got a federal program. That 2018 Farm Bill kind of specified that, and that's one of the reasons, some of the experience that we've seen over there and how hemp is handled here in the state is why we've got we're making the move that we are to try to bring cannabis, hemp, and marijuana all together in the same body. Bring them together. Yeah. A lot of hemp's kind of the other green plant. And a lot of folks don't realize, that there are a lot of good cannabinoids in there that are, medicinal stuff and can be generated that way. There's, multiple industrial applications for it, be it the hempcrete or plastic, that type of stuff.
We're going to have to insert our disclaimer here, the FDA disclaimer, that this is all in our opinion, but I love our opinion on hemp.
That's right. It may be my opinion, but I'm basing it on stuff I see on a day-to-day basis. So I'll keep that under my first.
Because I always look at the stuff that can be replaced, the non-replaceable, like the wood, takes for so long to grow, but we can replace so much stuff with hemp. Short growing, 90 days, boom, boom, let's do it. I love that.
Yeah, you can produce a lot more fiber for paper faster. You can produce insulation. There are folks here in the state that are gearing up that are doing plant-based plastics and stuff, and it's, then the seed's good food. We were given, seed-bearing plants to, eat. So we've got the seed, you've got rope. There's just so many different things that can be done with it, and there's a lot of positive economic opportunity out there.
That would be helping our farmers because, like I said, hemp, it is a green fertilizer. It also helps clean the soil, so you can help turn it in and turn it over and improve your crop yield.
You really can, and one thing that one thing that I do is when I grow, I do regenerative agriculture.
Right.
It's all I'm about. Rebuilding the soil and building up those ecosystems. And one thing that's really interesting, and a lot of folks may or may not know this, but a lot of the cattle that gets grazed on land that's got a lot of herbicide on it.
Right.
And so a lot of 2,4-D and other things, and so they eat that. And it passes through their system. It's detectable. Glyphosate's detectable in our food supply.
Right.
And where you really see it concentrate is in the feedlot dirt. So if you take and run a lot of fresh manure out and then bury it, till it in, the first year or even two, it's still loaded up with enough of that broadleaf killer to where it will actually kill your cannabis plants.
It's hot.
Right. It is hot. And so one thing that I like to do is take basically just some hemp and run that in there to the point, run some 50-50 seed in there, and at the point it gets ready to where it wants to sex out, it looks all like hell and everything, just till it back, just take it, till it back in. You're using it as
green fertilizer.
Right.
First, using it as a cleaner to clean the soil, to get it unhot or whatever, and then you use it great usage, right on.
Yeah, just let the nature take back over that and all the bugs in the soil, and you got billions of employees out there doing good stuff.
Working away.
Yeah. But yeah, that's there's a lot of stuff, and and that program is underfunded. It's had a real rough time getting off the ground. That's generally because Department of Ag would just as soon not deal with it. When hemp was out in the pilot program, if you looked it up on Oklahoma State's website, they'd say we're just not touching it.
Right.
Basically, and there are folks kind of within the ag community and Pillars of Power that frustrated folks' efforts. There's public record on that.
Well, they need to go back and look at World War II and find out that Oklahoma was the #1 producer of hemp in World War II.
That's that's something that's really lost on a lot of folks is the history of cannabis in Oklahoma. There are strains that are native here.
Right.
And when folks talk about, well, it doesn't grow well here, it doesn't grow well there, man, that stuff will be out there in 105 degrees and a 30-mile-an-hour wind, leaves pointing towards the sun.
You bet.
If it's rooted in there good. I mean, that stuff will grow here.
It's ready to grow. I like that. Yeah, it likes Oklahoma.
It does. It really does. And so there's that's one of the things. Right now, one of the problems that we've got is with hemp in the state. A lot of folks might not be aware of is that while we're doing a lot of consumer safety stuff, a lot of testing and things like that,
right, over
on the medical marijuana side, the same testing is not being applied to hemp products that are coming through in a lot of cases. So, there are places where you could say go and pick up some smokable flower in a gas station or something, but there's no COA on that.
Right.
It may have been tested to verify that it's hemp but not marijuana, but you really don't know what, pesticides and different stuff like that. Now, good operators are doing good things, but I mean, we all know, so it's just this huge gaping hole.
The gas station CBD hemp or anything like that. There's too many places you can go and get quality tested good products.
And that's the thing is that it's out there, and that's one of the things where we see with Department of Ag here in the state is if we say something to them when we say something to them about it, they say, well, we can't because the FDA hasn't got rules on it. Well, we all know the glacial pace at which bureaucracy doesn't function, and so it could be even years more. I mean, they might have something out in the fall. They might be 2 years from now. They just they've been caught in that deal so long where they say, well, we can't research it because it's not legal, and so we have no knowledge of this, and now we're trying to implement something that we have no knowledge of.
Right.
It's one of those things where as a state, I just feel like we've got to, again, take matters into our own hands to
try to help the people.
Right, yeah. Right.
That's the thing about our legislators. If our legislators will help us and work with us, they're good. Mm-hmm. But whenever they're not helping our people, that's where it really irritates me.
Right, and there are some that have been really helpful, but there's been some real sticks in the mud too.
Yep.
And it only takes in the cog of government, it only takes one sticky wheel and the whole damn thing seizes up, and you're not going anywhere quick.
We've noticed that. You put something in there and it's really good, and you get sitting there going along, and then all of a sudden someone puts a rider or something on there.
Yeah.
And boom.
Yeah. The poison pills and folks just trying to get fancy. Someone in there. Working for a carve out that's got some connection or whatever, right. And I mean that's all a given. We know that stuff goes on, and I just want to take a moment to applaud yourself, and DC, and just a whole bunch of other folks. There are lots and lots of folks out there
right.
that have have basically what we have actually managed to preserve in the last 3 years is actually kind of amazing when you look at what's going on in other states, like we're Mississippi, okay, well this, then that gets thrown out, it's
one person stopped it, right?
Right, exactly. And so, it's really been, there are a lot of folks, some work quietly, some work, full-throated, and at the end of the day, that's what folks see with our community, and it's there's been good, there's been bad, and there's been ugly, but I mean that's democracy.
Exactly, and that's what we always say is a lot of people don't see the entire cannabis community. We talk to and know a lot of these cannabis, well, I know a lot of them,
right? And
you see they go. One individual person is out there working by themselves, educating people every day. I love that.
Yeah. No, the level of activism. One thing that was really super impressive about the activism within our community is that the initial year, the number of patient drives that just spontaneously, that grassroots energy kept up, and you see it in the patient license numbers today, basically just about no one saw that coming.
Oh, no. And every day we're getting more and more patients.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best patient drives I went to, it really did get my heart because a friend of mine went in, they got the recommendation, and they come out and they jump up and chest bump their friend because they could now legally use cannabis.
Right.
I love that. You bet.
Well, and that's what's, a lot of folks may not really completely get, those, I think there's a lot to do, obviously.
Right.
But the level of persecution in this state particularly. Yeah, it's bad everywhere,
Right.
you know, but there's some certain things. I mean, you're talking 99 years of plant.
Yeah.
Illegal cultivation.
Exactly.
For a plant. It's a life sentence. Good Lord.
And they start stacking charges on there too, because that's going to be cultivation, it's going to be distribution. You know, it's just going to go on and on and on.
Yeah, the tax stamp was always fun.
I love
tax
that
stamp of all things, you know. And then you couldn't. I mean, I don't think they'll sell you one right now.
Oh, really? I've thought about going back and getting one.
I think right after 788 passed, there was kind of a question that was up in the air. It was like, do we got to go, you know, pick up that tax stamp from OBMDD? And I think, you know, I mean, I'm sure they can print them if they wanted to, but I think they might have one in a display case that's like, here it is, but no one can actually buy it. And I think it's like $1,300 a pound.
Yeah, okay, now the people that aren't familiar with the tax stamp, that was implemented a long time ago, and you could go down and get a tax stamp to grow marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever you went down and got the tax stamp, you were admitting that you were committing a felony because you got that tax stamp.
Yeah, and it goes to your point of piling on charges. You know, it just never enough. You know, Oklahoma's got that bad habit of, you know, punishing people they're mad at. But yeah, that tax stamp was simply made to be an additional charge.
Because if they busted somebody, they could pile on another charge for not having a tax stamp.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on that right there, we're going to take another break and give a shout out to our sponsors. You're watching Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you toke up and tune back in. Welcome back to Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you toked up and tuned in. Sitting here talking to my good friend Jeb Green, and we're talking about a wide variety of subjects.
Yeah, we are, and appreciate you having me on this morning.
Right on.
We've covered everything from, you know, donuts to hemp at this point in time, and but yeah, I think what I'm thinking y'all are wanting to hear from me is kind of just, Jed, what in the hell are you up to?
That's exactly
what's going on right now. Yeah. So as a lot of folks know, you know, we've been talking here for a few years about the need to potentially run constitutional petitions to enshrine and protect our program. We've seen, you know, some different offerings on that. We've all put in a lot of time over the last 3 years, and we kind of see what we're going to be able to get through the legislature and what we're not going to be able to, and see what some of those roadblocks are, and see a lot of things that we can do to improve our program.
Right.
And so that's what's going on here. I've done campaigns and such here in Oklahoma for about 15 years. You know, I had a good time working with everyone on 788 and kind of working to yes, I've still got the art for that.
You do.
I've still got the art for that. I've still got the art for the yard signs. We might even resurrect it, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's where we're at. So what I've done here is I've created a new organization called Oklahomans for Responsible Cannabis Action, and ORCA for short. You know, we got a free Willie. So the effort here is that in order to do this, we've got to have a vehicle for it per se. It's like starting a company, and that's what it is. It's an Inc., and it's registered as a 501c4 nonprofit, not a C3, which is just your straight nonprofit, or a C6 that's a trade association. This is a C4, and so by definition, the activities of this group has to be for the public good, supporting this issue for the public good. No, you know, real hard interest one way or the other than just education and advocacy. Okay. Plain and simple. And it can be at the doorstep, it can be at the Capitol, just kind of, you know, wherever. But these are commonly known as super PACs. And so super PACs have broad electoral power. And so that's what I've done is I created this. That can be found at orcaok.com, ORCA, OK.
ORCA.
Okay.
Okay.
That's right. And right now what we've got 2 separate petitions set up that we have had out in public commentary here for about 3 weeks now. A bunch of folks have been working on it behind the scenes. A lot of folks that, maybe in the past haven't necessarily got on the greatest. Everyone is, kind of chipping in, and there's a long list. If I went down that list, I'd omit someone, but, credit always comes where credit's due, and there's a lot of folks that have put in a lot of work on it. Right. So we've gotten to that, and the concept here is that there are some fundamental things that we need to do for medical, and this really is politically calculated.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. It is politically calculated. There are a lot of folks that we want to get full access going, but we also know that there are some things that are so fundamental that need to be fixed with this program to create transparency and accountability within how it operates, and get more of our input into that process in kind of a smoother way, kind of settle things down. At the end of the day, it's the biggest problem we've got is that this program is not settled down. Until it settles down, it's going to continue to be a mess, and we're going to be burning energy yelling about stuff that we shouldn't have to be yelling about. We should not have to be doing what we're doing right now.
Oh, I agree.
For the record. Yeah. But it's okay. We'll do that. We the people have that power, and so we will exercise that power. And again, this is here to help. This takes care of a lot of things, and you'll see most of that in the medical petition. It's bigger than what I'd like for it to be. The first thing is no one wants to add pages to the Constitution, but we've got 4 pages of patient protections that could be eroded. I believe that patients should have their rights in the Constitution, given what we've seen in the past.
And that's what we're going to bring up. These are going to both be constitutional amendments, and we've seen what they've done with 788 and 2612, and we're talking about state questions and different like that, laws and stuff like that, how they keep changing that. Now, constitutional amendment, that's going to be etched in stone. Once that's there, that cannot be changed.
Right, and so we have to be very, very careful with what we're doing there. And at the end of the day, constitutional amendments are meant to be setups for further statutory work.
Right.
Kind of like what we saw. We're never going to get away from, working with the legislature, working with the regulators. But right now, we are not in a good position to do that as a community. One thing that we've seen here, especially this past year, is we're starting to see camps, even within chambers, divide up. And so it's getting harder to see what's going on with how these bills are coming around to where they're at. Now, that's part process, the sheer volume of stuff that goes on through there. We have to acknowledge that. But we also could have a lot cleaner setup to ensure, broader transparency and accountability. These folks are holding us accountable. Yeah. We believe that's a two-way street.
And that's why working up at the Capitol, until you go up there and see the amount of volume of what goes on up there, you really need to see what all happens on a bill, amendment, whatever.
I've got a fun picture I've got to post that come off the Senate floor the last day. And Senate's got a little tradition over there. One of the freshman senators, they take and pile all the bills from the session on their desk. And so there's a fellow that just got elected out of Pittsburgh County, District 7, Cowboy Blake Stevens.
Okay.
And so Cowboy, he's rocking his hat. If they'd let him, he'd do it on the floor, So, yeah. So he's a good guy from what I can tell. Haven't met the man, but he seems like he might be a decent dude, And so anyway, there's a picture of him trying to retrieve his hat from on top of this pile of bills. And I mean, this stack is unbelievable. There's a good 4 trees worth. And when you look at it, you're like, there's no way that anyone could process. My brain is about melted from dealing with 15 to 20 pages.
Just one subject.
Right. One subject, that we care intensely about. And it's taken a group of us to, get that thing where it needs to be. So it's one of those things. I'm not here to apologize for anyone or make excuses. I'll call balls and strikes, and one of them is just the sheer volume. It's like, man, I tell you this, if you actually run the numbers on it, cost of, campaigns and gathering signatures versus cost of lobbying and all the effort that goes on and so on and so forth, it is more cost effective for us to do what we're doing than to, be running around in a blender.
Well, that's why I say a lot of times is we are the digital world, and a lot of times the opponents, they're the analog world.
Mm-hmm.
And we can get the word out to our people a whole lot quicker.
Mm-hmm. We can. One thing we also have to remember is that there are a lot of people that we have that aren't even in our digital world, and so we have to be able to also communicate over there, and that's old school retail politics.
Right on. All right, now we're going to end on an old school phrase. You've been watching Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you toke up and tune back in.
Water whipping, water dripping. Broke the pack, mixed it with the midget.